She told me not to say it, but every glance, every touch made it impossible to stay silent. The story begins with a quiet, seemingly ordinary day that holds the first spark of something extraordinary. The young man, 24, finds himself in a setting that feels routine, a small, sunlit cafe tucked between the familiar streets of the city, or perhaps the corner of a local library where the hum of whispered conversations and turning pages fills the air. Life moves in predictable rhythms here, but today, something shifts. Something, or rather someone, draws his attention in a way he didn't expect. She enters with a presence that is immediately magnetic. A woman in her early 40s, confident yet understated, moves through the space with a natural grace. Her attire is sophisticated but simple, a soft cashmere sweater paired with tailored pants, or a flowing dress that hints at elegance without demanding attention. There's a quiet strength in her posture, a subtle warmth in her smile, and a calm composure that makes her stand out without trying. Even from across the room, he notices the way she tilts her head slightly as she reads the menu, the faint way sunlight catches her hair, and the gentle curve of her lips when she smiles at a stranger or the barista. It's the kind of presence that draws eyes naturally, yet she seems unaware of it. He hesitates, unsure why he feels this pull towards someone he doesn't even know. There's curiosity, yes, but also something deeper, an unspoken recognition, as if the world has shifted slightly in response to her presence. Every small detail registers. The way her fingers lightly brush the spine of a book she picks up, the soft sound of her heels against the wooden floor, the faint fragrance she leaves in the air, a subtle mix of floral and something earthy, intimate without being overpowering. Their first interaction is brief, almost accidental. She might hand him a book he had been reaching for, their fingers brushing ever so slightly. A small smile exchanges between them, fleeting yet charged with unspoken electricity. He notices her glance linger just a fraction longer than social norms dictate, and his pulse quickens. She looks away politely, returning to her own world, but the moment leaves a mark, a spark he can't ignore. Internally, he wrestles with his feelings. He's aware of the age gap, of the potential complications, and yet none of that dampens the fascination he feels. There's a tension building inside him, the desire to speak, to engage, to connect, and the cautious awareness that rushing forward could ruin everything before it begins. She, in turn, senses his attention. Her eyes flicker toward him briefly, a moment of acknowledgement before she looks away, maintaining her calm exterior. There's curiosity in her expression, a subtle awareness of the magnetic pull, but she doesn't act on it. She knows something delicate has started, and perhaps she wants it to unfold slowly. The atmosphere around them amplifies the intimacy of these tiny, seemingly mundane moments. The faint aroma of coffee, the muted chatter of other patrons, the warm sunlight streaming through large windows, all create a cocoon in which this first connection forms. Every sensory detail sharpens his awareness. The slight brush of a sleeve, the warmth of her hand as she passes a book, the soft cadence of her laughter that drifts to him like a secret meant only for him. Even the subtle silence between words becomes meaningful, a canvas on which unspoken emotions begin to paint themselves. By the end of this first encounter, there is no dramatic confession, no overt romantic gesture, only the sense that something important has begun. The young man walks away with a lingering awareness of her presence, his mind replaying every small detail, every subtle touch, every fleeting glance. There's excitement, but also restraint. He knows he's caught off guard by feelings he can't fully name yet, and the story's tension is born in that uncertainty. This first part sets the foundation for the slow burn romance. It establishes the age gap dynamic without stating it explicitly, emphasizes emotional observation over physical desire, and creates a rich sensory tapestry that makes the audience feel the magnetic pull between the two characters. The key is subtlety. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced, and every small gesture or glance carries weight, priming the viewer for the gradual emotional unfolding to come. By the time this segment ends, the audience is already invested, eager to see what happens when curiosity, attraction, and unspoken desire begin to collide. After the initial spark of recognition in the first encounter, their paths cross again under circumstances that feel coincidental but almost fated. Perhaps he notices her sitting at the same cafe table the following week, or they meet during a quiet afternoon at the library, reaching for the same book once more. This second encounter carries the weight of anticipation. He remembers her, and she remembers him. There's an unspoken acknowledgement of the brief, magnetic connection from before, and the air between them feels charged, almost electric. From the start, their interaction is light and teasing. She maintains her boundaries with a playful sharpness, sensing his growing interest and testing the waters herself. "Don't say it," she murmurs at one point, her tone teasing yet firm, as though aware of the unspoken tension simmering between them. His response, though restrained, carries a spark of mischief and longing. "Then don't make me want to." It's the first instance where their flirtation begins to dance dangerously close to confession without ever tipping over into overt declaration. Their dialogue is filled with subtle, emotionally resonant gestures. She might brush a strand of hair from her face, but not before he notices the gentle curve of her fingers and the way sunlight catches her hair. He feels the warmth of her presence, even in silence, and notes every detail: the soft texture of her sweater, the quiet laughter that escapes her, the way she leans slightly forward when intrigued. Small touches, like the accidental brush of shoulders as they reach for a book, or the brief meeting of hands as they pass an item across the table, leave lingering impressions that neither can ignore. The sensory details in these moments are crucial. The faint aroma of her perfume mixes with the smell of coffee or old books, embedding a memory he can't shake. The soft clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation around them, even the way light filters through nearby windows, all serve to heighten their awareness of each other. Every glance, every hesitation, is amplified by the surrounding world, making each interaction feel intimate despite the public setting. Internally, he struggles with the push and pull of attraction and restraint. He wants to reach out, to lean closer, to let her know the depth of the fascination she evokes. But he also knows she has set boundaries, and respecting them is part of what makes the connection meaningful. She, on the other hand, experiences a similar tension. She is intrigued by his attentiveness, charmed by his sincerity, yet cautious. There's a part of her that wants to retreat, to maintain control and protect herself, but another part leans in, curious and willing to test the fragile line they both walk. Playful resistance becomes a dance, a give and take of emotions and gestures. She might joke lightly at something he says, challenging him intellectually or teasing him with a sly remark that hints at deeper interest. He responds in kind, careful not to overstep but unable to hide the spark in his eyes, the subtle quiver in his voice when she catches him off guard. This interplay establishes a rhythm between them, a balance of tension and connection that will define the slow-burn nature of their relationship. The emotional stakes rise subtly through these interactions. Each smile, each fleeting touch, each lingering glance adds layers to their connection. They both become acutely aware of the silent communication developing, a language of glances, gestures, and pauses that conveys more than words could. Every moment carries weight because it exists on the cusp of intimacy, never crossing the line but always hinting at the possibility. By the end of this segment, the audience should feel the magnetic push and pull between them. There is no overt confession, no dramatic gesture, only the tension of unspoken desire, the warmth of subtle touches, and the excitement of playful verbal sparring. Their connection deepens emotionally and sensually without violating the boundaries of tastefulness or YouTube safety. The stage is set for deeper emotional revelations, as both characters are now aware of their mutual intrigue and the delicate thrill of wanting something that feels just out of reach. This part of the story strengthens the slow burn arc, showing that true tension and connection are built on subtlety, restraint, and the slow accumulation of shared moments. By the time the audience moves to the next chapter, they are invested, eager to witness the evolution of this delicate, age-gap romance, where desire simmers beneath the surface, and emotional intimacy begins to take root. After their playful banter and subtle push and pull in the previous encounters, the relationship begins to deepen. This part of the story focuses on emotional intimacy, revealing glimpses of vulnerability that allow both characters to see each other as more than just intriguing strangers. The young man, 24, notices that beneath her confident exterior, there is a quiet vulnerability, a depth of experience shaped by life's challenges, joys, and occasional regrets. She is a woman in her early 40s, poised and elegant, yet her expressions and gestures hint at emotions she rarely exposes to others. Their meeting feels less coincidental this time, more like a purposeful crossing of paths. Perhaps they end up seated next to each other on a park bench during a sudden rain shower, or they find themselves working together on a small project at a shared workspace. These situations force a degree of closeness that allows emotional glimpses to surface naturally. Their conversation moves beyond casual pleasantries. It begins to explore personal thoughts and experiences, albeit in a subtle and careful manner. The young man senses a moment of opportunity. She shares something quietly significant, a memory from her past, a reflection on a mistake, or a fleeting moment of self-doubt. Her voice softens, the words deliberate but unguarded. The way her fingers trace the edge of a notebook or rest lightly on her lap adds to the intimacy. He listens intently, feeling the weight of her vulnerability without interrupting, aware that this is a fragile window into her inner world. His respect and patience communicate more than words ever could, and she feels it, responding with small but meaningful gestures, a nod, a lingering glance, a subtle smile that carries gratitude and trust. Physical proximity in these moments amplifies the emotional resonance. Perhaps he offers a comforting hand on her shoulder as a natural response, careful not to overstep, or their hands brush while exchanging an item. The smallest touch lingers longer than intended, sending a quiet current of awareness through both of them. She may shift slightly closer, resting her hand near his, or allow their knees to touch briefly under a shared table, a subtle acknowledgement of the connection they are beginning to form. Every gesture is understated but meaningful, emphasizing emotional closeness over physical desire. The setting itself mirrors the intimacy between them. Soft afternoon light filters through a window, catching the contours of her face and the warmth in her eyes. The distant murmur of life outside contrasts with the quiet, almost suspended atmosphere around them. The young man notices details that draw him in, the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders as she breathes, the slight tremor in her voice as she recounts a difficult memory, or the way her gaze lingers on him for a fraction longer than polite conversation dictates. These small moments are powerful because they feel authentic and uncontrived, allowing the audience to sense the slow deepening of their bond. Internally, both characters grapple with new emotions. He feels protective, drawn not only by attraction but by a genuine desire to support her emotionally. She, meanwhile, experiences a blend of trust and caution. She wants to open up, to let him see her fully, but she also fears vulnerability and the implications of emotional intimacy. This delicate balance between openness and restraint creates rich internal conflict that the audience can relate to, making their connection feel both real and compelling. The narrative tension comes from the unspoken desires layered over this emotional intimacy. Neither character acts impulsively, but every glance, every touch, every moment of shared understanding intensifies the unvoiced attraction between them. The young man notices the subtle shifts in her demeanor, the way her lips curve slightly when she feels understood, the fleeting sparkle in her eyes when she senses he's listening deeply. She notices the way he leans in, attentive and present, the sincerity radiating from his expressions and gestures. These are the silent exchanges that convey emotional depth far more than words ever could. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the weight of emotional connection beginning to surpass surface-level attraction. The playful teasing and intrigue of earlier interactions have evolved into something more profound: trust, empathy, and a tentative willingness to share inner truths. The tension remains, but it is layered now with emotional resonance, making the eventual confessions and romantic developments even more impactful. The slow burn continues, but the characters are no longer merely aware of each other, they are beginning to understand one another, forming the foundation of a deeper, more meaningful bond. By now, the emotional connection between the young man and the older woman has deepened, evolving from playful intrigue and cautious vulnerability into a subtler, more potent form of desire. This part of the story is all about tension, unspoken attraction simmering beneath the surface, expressed through shared moments, proximity, and fleeting touches rather than words. Their interactions grow more deliberate yet still restrained, each scene layered with nuance and careful observation. The setting plays a crucial role in amplifying this tension. Perhaps they find themselves walking together along a quiet, tree-lined street at dusk, the fading light painting everything in warm amber tones. Or they share a park bench on a crisp afternoon, watching people pass while exchanging private, quiet observations. Even routine situations, a shared workspace, a library corner, or a cafe table, take on heightened significance because of the awareness they have of each other. Every glance, gesture, or shift in posture carries weight, turning ordinary environments into intimate stages. Physical proximity becomes central to their interactions. Their hands may brush accidentally, a subtle jolt of awareness passing between them. Their knees touch briefly under a table, a fleeting, shared moment that neither addresses but that lingers in memory. She might adjust her scarf or tuck her hair behind her ear, allowing her hand to momentarily linger near his. These small touches are electric precisely because they are understated, leaving room for the imagination while communicating mutual attraction. Each gesture is amplified by awareness, making their connection feel heightened without ever violating boundaries. Sensory details intensify the intimacy of these moments. The warmth of her hand as it accidentally grazes his arm, the softness of her voice when speaking in close proximity, or the subtle shift of her body toward him, all create a tactile layer to their growing tension. Even external elements, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant hum of city life, or the rhythmic patter of rain against a window, act as a backdrop that mirrors the quiet intensity of their connection. Every sensory impression reinforces the slow burn energy between them, making each encounter feel unforgettable. Emotionally, the young man is caught between admiration, desire, and restraint. He wants to close the gap between them, to lean in and let her know exactly how she affects him, but he also recognizes the delicate balance of timing and respect. She senses this restraint and responds with subtle cues that suggest both interest and caution. A lingering look, a gentle nudge of her shoulder, or a faint, playful smile hints at her awareness of his feelings while reminding him, and herself, that they are still navigating the boundaries of this attraction. The story here leans heavily on unspoken communication. Words become secondary to the language of gestures and glances. A pause in conversation, the tilt of a head, the way she catches his eye across a crowded room, all convey layers of emotion that dialogue alone cannot capture. These moments of silent understanding are crucial for the audience to feel the tension building, as the characters communicate volumes without a single explicit declaration of desire. Internal conflict remains central. Both characters are acutely aware of the age difference, of social norms, and of their own hesitations, yet these considerations do not diminish the pull they feel. The young man experiences the thrill of longing paired with the anxiety of restraint, while she balances intrigue with the awareness of emotional and social implications. This dual tension keeps the story compelling, as viewers understand that every touch, every glance, and every shared silence carries profound significance. By the end of this segment, the desire between them is undeniable, though unspoken. They may share fleeting, intimate moments, a brush of fingers while reaching for a cup, a quiet laugh over a private joke, or a lingering gaze as one leaves and the other remains. These small acts, weighted with unvoiced attraction, intensify the slow burn dynamic and keep the audience emotionally invested. The stage is now perfectly set for the next phase, the inevitable temptation to confess feelings and the risk of crossing emotional boundaries that have been carefully maintained until now. This part of the story strengthens the narrative by blending longing, restraint, and deepening emotional intimacy. It emphasizes that slow burn romance thrives not on dramatic gestures, but on the accumulation of small, meaningful moments that leave both characters, and the audience, hungering for the next connection. By this point, the slow burn tension between the young man and the older woman has reached a point where restraint feels almost unbearable. The emotional intimacy and lingering desire of their previous encounters have built a pressure that neither can ignore, yet neither has crossed the line into overt confession. Part 5 focuses on the brink of revelation, the delicate, charged moment where unspoken feelings hover dangerously close to surfacing, while both characters navigate their own fears, desires, and social considerations. The setting amplifies this intensity. Perhaps they are alone in a quiet corner of a cafe at dusk, the warm glow of a single hanging light casting soft shadows across their faces. Or maybe they find themselves on a secluded park bench during a late evening stroll, where the only sounds are the gentle rustle of leaves and distant city hum. These intimate, almost cocoon-like environments mirror the vulnerability and heightened emotions each character experiences. The world outside seems to fade, leaving just the two of them and the charged energy that has been building for weeks. Their conversation, though seemingly casual, brims with unspoken meaning. Small gestures, a hand lingering slightly longer on a shared item, the way he instinctively leans toward her when she speaks, the softness in her tone when responding, carry the weight of their mutual attraction. It's in the subtle pauses, the exchanges of glances that last a heartbeat too long, that the real story unfolds. When she says, "Don't say it," it is both a warning and a challenge, a reflection of her own awareness of the growing tension. His reply, "Then don't make me want to," is teasing yet loaded with emotion, signaling that he is on the edge of confessing feelings he has been holding back. The physicality of this scene remains understated but profoundly intimate. Their hands may hover near each other without touching, creating a magnetic tension that is almost tangible. A brush of his fingers against her wrist or the faint contact of knees under the table sends a ripple of awareness through both, amplifying the emotional stakes. The simple act of leaning in closer to hear her, or adjusting to share the warmth of a cool evening, becomes a declaration of closeness in itself. These moments are powerful because they communicate desire without needing words, allowing the audience to feel the slow burn intensity fully. Internally, both characters are conflicted. The young man feels the urgent pull of emotion. He wants to speak, to finally let her know the depth of his feelings, but he fears jeopardizing the fragile trust and connection they have nurtured. Every instinct tells him to lean in, yet reason reminds him of the careful pace required. She experiences a parallel tension, a mix of curiosity, attraction, and hesitation. She senses his emotions and struggles with her own desires, conscious of boundaries but equally aware of the magnetic pull between them. This duality creates a delicate emotional dance that is compelling for the audience, as every movement and glance carries layered meaning. The sensory details heighten the intensity of the scene. The warmth of her hand as it hovers near his, the soft cadence of her voice, the subtle way her eyes glimmer in the lamplight, all serve to create a heady mix of anticipation and longing. Even the environment contributes. The soft clink of a coffee cup, the faint scent of rain outside, the cool evening breeze brushing past them, all accentuate the intimacy of the moment, making it feel suspended in time. By the end of this part, the tension has reached its peak. The temptation to confess is almost overwhelming, yet neither fully gives in. Instead, the story revels in the unsaid, in the electric charge of proximity and shared understanding. The audience experiences the thrill of near confession, the exquisite edge of desire tempered by restraint. This moment sets the stage for the next chapter, where vulnerability and trust deepen further, and where the characters begin to confront their emotions in ways that move beyond teasing and subtle gestures. This keynote strengthens the story by highlighting the emotional and romantic climax of the slow burn arc. The characters are now fully aware of the depth of their attraction and the emotional stakes involved. Their restraint and the unspoken tension make the eventual revelations all the more powerful, leaving the audience invested in how the bond between them will evolve. It is a delicate balance of desire, hesitation, and emotional honesty that keeps viewers emotionally hooked and eager for the next phase of the story. After the peak of temptation and unspoken desire in the previous part, the story shifts toward a deeper, more meaningful form of intimacy, one rooted in emotional vulnerability and trust. The young man and the older woman have established a strong foundation of mutual attraction and playful tension, but now the narrative explores the heart of their connection, understanding each other's inner worlds and forming an emotional bond that transcends fleeting desire. The setting reinforces this intimate phase. Perhaps they are in a quiet corner of a cozy cafe, the soft hum of conversation and clinking cups fading into the background, leaving them in a private bubble. Alternatively, They might be walking along a quiet waterfront at dusk, the gentle lapping of water against the pier echoing the rhythm of their hearts. The environment mirrors the emotional landscape, soft, calm, and contemplative, allowing the audience to focus on the nuances of their developing trust. This is the part of the story where the older woman begins to reveal aspects of herself she has kept private. She may share a past regret, a fear, or a moment of vulnerability that shaped her life. Her voice is quiet, careful, but there's a softness in her tone that communicates a willingness to let him in. She doesn't overshare, but the details she does reveal are profound, an intimate glimpse into her experiences, struggles, and emotional depth. Each revelation is accompanied by subtle body language, her fingers tracing the rim of a cup, her shoulders slightly hunched with the weight of memory, or her eyes glancing down before meeting his with quiet trust. The young man responds with attentive presence. He listens without interrupting, allowing space for her to express herself fully. His gestures are understated but deeply communicative, a gentle hand on her arm in reassurance, leaning in slightly to indicate focus, or a soft smile that conveys empathy. The audience can sense the mutual respect and care that underpins their interaction. This is not superficial charm or flirtation, but a genuine connection built on emotional honesty. Physical closeness in this part is subtle but meaningful. A hand resting briefly on her shoulder, their knees lightly touching under a shared table, or a gentle brush as he hands her a notebook. All of these moments carry an intensity born of trust rather than desire. These small, tactile interactions serve to reinforce the emotional intimacy, making the audience feel the closeness without crossing into overt romance. Every touch is deliberate in its restraint, and heightened by the context of the emotional conversation taking place. Internally, both characters grapple with the balance between vulnerability and caution. The young man feels a protective instinct, a desire to support her without overstepping boundaries. He also feels the thrill of connection, the knowledge that this level of trust is rare and significant. She, meanwhile, navigates the tension between opening up and maintaining control. Letting him in is both exhilarating and frightening. It is a test of their bond and her own emotional courage. The audience can relate to this delicate dance, recognizing the power of shared vulnerability in fostering deep emotional connection. Sensory details enrich these moments, grounding the emotional intensity in tangible experience. The warmth of a hand, the softness of her sweater against his fingertips, the gentle cadence of her voice, the subtle scent of her perfume, all combine to create an atmosphere that is both intimate and immersive. Environmental cues, the quiet rustle of leaves, the distant hum of city life, the soft glow of evening light, enhance the feeling that these characters exist in a small, private world where trust and vulnerability take center stage. By the end of this part, the emotional intimacy has solidified. They have shared pieces of themselves that few people ever see, forming a bond built on mutual understanding, respect, and subtle affection. Desire still simmers beneath the surface, but it is now layered with empathy, care, and trust. This foundation sets the stage for the story's resolution. Whether they move toward a romantic commitment, leave with lasting impact, or find a different form of emotional fulfillment, the audience now understands the depth of their connection. Keynote 6 emphasizes that true romance is more than desire. It is about seeing someone fully, embracing vulnerability, and forming a bond that transcends superficial attraction. By focusing on emotional depth, tactile subtleties, and sensory richness, this segment keeps viewers invested and emotionally engaged, preparing them for the story's culmination in Part 7. After the slow burn tension, playful teasing, emotional vulnerability, and simmering desire of the previous chapters, the story reaches its culmination. This is the moment where all the emotional threads woven throughout the narrative converge, giving both characters, and the audience, a sense of clarity and fulfillment. The young man and the older woman, having traversed the delicate path of attraction and emotional intimacy, must now confront the question of what their connection truly means and how it will shape their futures. The setting mirrors the intimacy and emotional weight of this moment. Perhaps they are in the warm glow of the cafe where they first noticed each other, the same table where gestures and glances first carried unspoken meaning. Or perhaps they are on a quiet evening walk along a waterfront, the soft shimmer of lights reflecting in the water as the world around them fades into a gentle blur. Even simple environments, a park bench, a cozy living room, a quiet street, take on heightened significance because of the shared emotional history that now colors every detail. Every flicker of light, every distant sound, every subtle breeze becomes part of the emotional tapestry that frames their interaction. By now, their connection is unmistakable. The tension that once simmered beneath playful banter and fleeting touches has matured into a steady current of understanding and care. They are acutely aware of each other's presence, and every subtle gesture communicates volumes. Her hand brushing his sleeve, a lingering glance, a quiet smile that conveys both recognition and affection. These moments carry the weight of weeks of subtle closeness, and the audience feels the intensity without needing overt declarations. The young man, having carried the emotional weight of his growing admiration and desire, finally allows himself to speak honestly. His words are carefully chosen, sincere, and reflective of the depth of his feelings. He does not rush into dramatic confession. Instead, he expresses his admiration, care, and the quiet intensity of his connection to her. Every pause, every nuance in his voice, communicates thoughtfulness and emotional maturity. He acknowledges the hesitation and boundaries that have defined their interactions, showing respect for her agency while still revealing the truth of his heart. Her response is equally nuanced. Depending on the narrative path, she may reciprocate fully, admitting she has felt the same pull and acknowledging the internal conflicts that made her hesitant. Or she may offer heartfelt care and deep affection without committing to romance, expressing gratitude and acknowledgement of the bond they share while leaving the future open. In all cases, her reaction is authentic and emotionally resonant, emphasizing the trust and understanding they have cultivated over time. Physical affection, in this resolution, is gentle, deliberate, and deeply meaningful. A soft touch to the arm, a lingering hug, or the brief intertwining of fingers carries immense weight because it is the culmination of weeks of emotional and tactile subtlety. These gestures communicate connection, reassurance, and shared intimacy in a YouTube-safe, emotionally satisfying way. The restraint and intentionality behind each movement make the moment resonate, leaving the audience with a tangible sense of closure. The sensory environment further enhances this emotional resonance. The warmth of ambient lighting, the soft texture of her scarf or sweater, the subtle scent of perfume, the gentle cadence of her voice, and even the distant murmur of life around them all contribute to a cocooned atmosphere. In this private emotional space, their connection feels timeless, allowing the audience to experience the culmination of the slow burn arc fully. Every element, the light, the sounds, the tactile sensations, supports the story's emotional payoff. Internally, both characters reflect on the journey they have shared. The young man realizes that his attraction encompasses admiration, respect, and genuine care, not just desire. The older woman recognizes the rare depth of trust and understanding that has developed between them. They are both aware that their connection has changed them, regardless of the form it ultimately takes. This internal acknowledgement gives the resolution emotional authenticity, ensuring the audience feels that the story's conclusion is earned and meaningful. By the end of this chapter, the story achieves closure while honoring the slow burn journey. Whether they embrace romance fully, part with bittersweet fondness, or leave the future open yet hopeful, the narrative emphasizes emotional truth, mutual respect, and lasting impact. The audience is left with a sense of warmth and resonance, having witnessed the full arc, from curiosity and playful tension to vulnerability, longing, and meaningful connection. Keynote 7 underscores that the power of slow burn romance lies not in dramatic twists or grand declarations but in subtle, authentic moments of understanding, trust, and emotional courage. This resolution gives the story its satisfying emotional closure, leaving both characters and viewers with a lingering sense of connection, fulfillment, and hope.